Hi Sachin,
Hey, Dinkar.
a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, we took a break, right? I think you were traveling, I was traveling, and Diwali
Yes.
happened. Uh,
Yes.
we gained some weight, so yeah, we are back.
Hey, I did not gain some weight. I gained more than some weight, but that's okay.
Probably you are not looking at the right metric, Dinkar. You did not step on the right scale.
So, and that reminds me, Sachin, you recently were talking to one enterprise, and you were sharing with me some experience of talking about EEBO metrics.
yeah,
So,
this was this was interesting one, Dinkar. Uh, Traditionally, or even most commonly, we go and meet people who are struggling, or they have
hmm.
identified that they are struggling. And our audience is typically engineering audience, right?
Sorry,
So
sorry to interrupt there. So a few days back, I was talking to someone. I was talking to the review panel for Agile Mumbai conference,
okay.
and their topic is on digital transformation. So obviously, I was talking about how digital transformations often go wrong, and why EEBO metrics makes sense. And
Mhm.
while talking to that person, I realized that we always see when things have gone wrong. So we have that bias because we always get involved when something has gone wrong. Maybe things are right also. So I have started reminding myself that maybe
But
things are not.
doctors don't give appointments to healthy patients, Dinkar. So that's also another thing. So,
Yeah,
sir, I showed up. Just I wanted to tell you, I'm feeling awesome, by the way.
everything is awesome.
So, uh, but that topic aside, so the case was interesting because the engineering team was in elite zone of 4 key metrics.
Hmm.
Their engineering excellence metrics were through the roof. Test coverage is amazing. Technical debt is low. Very autonomous team. They take their own decisions. So, on the curve of maturity, you can say that they are at a very mature level.
Hmm.
And when that happens, I was like, "What do you want to fix now?" And I mean, I had a hunch that where the problem might be. So they have 50 plus teams, which are fully autonomous. And they have these teams at almost close level of maturity in terms of engineering defaults, practices, tooling, all that stuff. Fantastic stuff. So that is an envious position for many of our like people whom we spoke in the past in many years. Despite that, they are struggling, and the struggles are on a different side though, because in this company, their leadership is facing that there is some friction. Although these teams are autonomous and everything, and they wanted to solve this friction.
Hmm.
My feeling is uh, like why what is the friction, how it is happening, and they found a lot of surveys and everything to say there is friction. And this is subjective analysis, right? You have done surveys and you have got some charts which are saying 50% of the population believes this, 30%
Hmm.
population believes that. And then I started realizing they don't have the business outcome metrics linked to their technical uh, excellence metrics. And it was like so solid vindication of our philosophy
Hmm.
that somewhere somebody is feeling that things are not going well, whereas all technical metrics are amazing.
Yeah.
And that's when I started asking a question is, so how do you say these cluster of 5 teams which are responsible for a part of your system, let's say search system, are successful? Like how
Hmm.
would you say that this particular cluster of teams is successful? And they don't have a very solid answer. And the reason they don't have solid answer is they have so much sent their teams to think only about technical excellence. They haven't linked it to the business outcomes, and business outcomes is the responsibility of somebody else. And I found that very interesting, Dinkar.
Yeah, it is. Let me bring up our favorite diagram, right?
Yeah.
Um, and the on the left hand side, the engineering excellence metrics do matter. But my favorite go-to analogy is we're driving very fast, but we have to go to Mysore. Are we going towards Mysore or are we going towards Chikmagalur? Right? Are we going in other direction? Without that direction, right, we're pacing towards probably nowhere. And that's why this correlation with business outcomes is very important. Having clarity on what the business outcomes are, and I think sometimes what happens is that the engineering organization is very keen on improving themselves. They're very keen on adopting latest methodologies. They're very keen on becoming better. And somewhere, because they're so keen, and there's an assumption that if you fix everything, everything else will fall into the place. And that's where I feel that engineering teams sometimes put a lot of extra pressure on themselves, that if we don't do everything right, if we don't have the right metrics, if we don't have the right methodology, the ways of working, others will not benefit. So I think the whole spectrum needs to improve, and the a- and the energy that engineering team shows in improvement has to be seen all across. So it seems like a case where the engineering the was kind of trying to do optimization in isolation, and the uh, correlation to business outcomes, that whole part was missing.
And I mean, the isolation is just organic, Dinkar, in this case.
Mm.
I don't think nobody planned for that isolation
Mm.
or the optimization as well. They aimed for engineering excellence and they got it. In fact, they are highly successful at it.
Right.
So it's just that they did not feel, or
Mm.
it's like you never felt that that is needed.
Right.
So you never fixed it. Now they have like reached to the glass ceiling of this engineering excellence. They need to expand that glass ceiling to go and get the business outcomes linked very quickly now, because they have a very good shot, because they already have all the foundation in the right place. So if I would like to rate, they are in a perfect place. They can
Mm.
quickly start adopting, because this level of performance wouldn't come unless they have excellent practices, the tooling, a quality of people, so capability. All those things are already in the right place. My feeling is the this is also traditional mindset, and if you think about it, this was one of the key takeaways, at least for me, from that McKinsey's controversial article, that yeah, yes, you can measure productivity. um, I would not like to focus on the business, like the aspects which are controversial aspects of it. But then the need is real. Business are always feeling that they see engineering teams as black box,
Mm.
and when asked for, hey, how are you doing, they get these metrics which they don't have a way to translate into something tangible. Example is, if I'm your running coach and I ask you, Dinkar, do you run fast? And you tell me my hemoglobin level is like 14.2. I mean, like, I would say, fantastic. Seems like you are healthy, but then do you still run fast? Because I am actually recruiting people for running. So tell me whether you are running fast or not. And it's like that understanding of how you measure success is extremely critical for business, and it's a problem which is practically available in majority of organizations, I would say.
Yeah.
Only a handful of companies would have solved it at a level which is, and I don't think that that is also extremely um, easy for other people to copy. They can take inspiration, but there is a lot of work which is required for such level of maturity.
And
But then,
yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
one question before you jump in is, it always amuses me is, it is not, we have spoken to 100 plus groups of people about this. On podcast, probably we have shown this slide 10 times.
Yeah.
What a team, which is, let's say, at this level, which is a mature team, they believe they are excellent. What is the first step they need to do to get into this? Because in theory everybody agrees, but what is the practical first step they need to take, um, to adopt to this business outcome and correlation of engineering excellence?
I was coming to that, and I think one piece missing here is, I think, is product management that we have not discussed enough, probably. So, going back to the analogy, we're driving very fast towards our direction. Are we going in the right direction or not? Is where product management comes into the picture. So this is something that I bring up every time whenever I can. Is it's the responsibility of the management team to ensure that there are certain business outcomes, right? Business outcome tend to be increase revenue, reduce cost, improve user experience, increase
Yeah,
adoption,
yeah,
and depending upon what stage the organization is, they may focus on one or two of them, right? And but those are business out. So the product will have certain outcomes of its own, business outcomes of its own, that kind of feed into that. And that's what we kind of have recommended, that these are the fours you can look at, right? So it's very important that the right stories are prioritized, right features are prioritized, the calendar of your users is very clear to you. You know when they want what, so you can line up those features in time. So prioritization becomes very critical. So prioritization of what is more useful, the intrinsic value itself, when it is more useful, the timeline value of it, right? And at what scale is it useful? You don't want to build for 10 million users from day one. You probably want to build for 100 users on day one, right? So these three aspects become very critical. And if these three are missing, and the engineering team is just being given, the product management is acting more like a channel of requirements, and they're not acting as a channel of, hey, this is the purpose, right? That's where these kind of problems start happening more and more. So I think the first step that the engineering leadership should always do is, and those who are listening to us and those who are in smaller organization, they won't understand. They'll say, obviously, because in a small organization, the degree of separation between each function is one, if not zero, right? Same person doing bunch of things, right? But in enterprises, right, there are different departments. So the
but
first thing.
while I agree to your sentiment of like small organizations wouldn't realize, definitely the friction would be less because of less steps. But in smaller organizations, this problem manifests differently, Dinkar.
Mhm.
The In smaller organizations, typically, although they understand, because any small organization, whether it is a startup or a growing organization, they work on hypothesis very fast.
Yeah.
Their strength is to validate hypotheses quickly and discard them fast.
Right.
And since they have a small team, they believe their communication overheads are so less, they can take quick decisions. And
Mhm.
to a great extent it works. But you know what, they are always on the opposite spectrum. They are too much biased on the business outcomes if they are doing things right
Right.
and trying to be successful. They don't pay much attention to technical excellence because they believe they if they are successful, they survive, they can always come back to technical excellence. So, um, and the on in the growth journey, focusing from like business outcomes to the technical excellence, or technical excellence to business outcomes, it's always like a fight to find equilibrium in my mind.
Right.
So they are always struggling to find an equilibrium.
I totally agree with you. What works for startups will not work for enterprises as
Exactly.
is, right? The the underlying theme should, that you're very nimble, you are very good at communication and these kind of things, right? But otherwise it should, we shouldn't expect same kind of things, right? The purpose of a startup is totally different. The product is
Yes.
at a different level of maturity. The users, what they're expecting from that is totally different than compared to an enterprise, right? So I totally agree that you know just because it's working for one, it should work as is for the other.
Yeah.
However, what I did want to outline is that those who come from smaller organizations may not have the appreciation of the complexity of an enterprise, right? And a lot of people do ask, right, what do you mean that product is talking different, and engineering is talking different, and business is talking different? How can that be possible? Don't they talk to each other? Well, in large organization, distributed organization, it that communication is a very deliberate, worked upon scenario. It just doesn't happen, right? You have to work hard towards that.
And
So
that's
yeah.
uh, that's very valid, Dinkar. In my mind and experience, I have found that the friction is manifestation of supplier and vendor relationships within the organization itself. They
Mhm.
see engineering as a vendor for their business, and
Yeah.
if any of the company is thinking their engineering as a vendor, they failed before even they started.
Yeah.
No amount of process communication practices uh, cannot fix that. They
Yeah.
need to think about merging these walls into a homogeneous organization, otherwise they will struggle eventually.
Yeah. And it's shocking how often this happens in large enterprises. So coming back, right? So the engineering is doing something. The product should stop, not stop, should not just be the function that prioritizes requirements, but also explains the purpose. So that whatever the business is trying to achieve, the enterprises will also learn very well, and based on that then they can quickly recover. So to the scenario that you raised, where the technical people are moving very fast, they're really efficient, but business is saying that, hey, we are not seeing any difference. I would say that the first thing they should do is talk to the product management function and say that, are you prioritizing right features? Are you prioritizing timely features? Are you prioritizing features that are fit for that size of that product at the right time? And I think that is the first step to take, the first practical
Understood.
step, right? And of course, using EEBO metrics to create that correlation so that you have a very scientific approach towards it becomes really a very handy tool. But that does not mean that it essentially replaces,
Yeah.
right? What you know the metrics don't replace responsibilities, right? Just putting in metrics will not solve everything. People need to be very cautious about and more deliberate about their responsibilities and their actions. So what
Yes.
you called out today is surprisingly a very common scenario that we and many others do see, that sometimes business, and this is so interesting, right? In early days, Bill Gates had said this, and there was a book on this, right? Business at the speed of sorry, tech or IT at the speed of business, right?
Hmm.
Business was always moving very fast, and that was when the thought was coming, that is technology responding very fast, right? And surprisingly, even today, right, the business organization where business moves very fast, the technology needs to move very fast, and they are doing those things, right? They are adopting these, and that's why engineering excellence is such an important thing. But are they going in the same direction? Are they in sync with each other? And that's where this correlation, the philosophy of EEBO metrics and the purpose of product management becomes more important.
Fantastic. The next step would be is Dinkar knowing how to, if I mean, obviously today you highlighted the need in this situation not to rely or push the onus of success of engineering teams only to engineering. Their
Right.
success is tied at hip to the product teams, business side of the organization as well. And when they are coming together, they need to identify a set of metrics, whether it is business outcome, whether it is technical excellence, agree upon and find the ownership who can say, hey, I am owner of this metric and I am going to make sure that the right resources are deployed. We communicate well enough that we explain the requirements, also set thresholds to ourselves of success and failure. But that itself, you have a very nice way of doing it, and you call it metrics modeling. I think that is a logical next step for us to think about and we should do a next podcast very soon about how to go from here.
Right. So, while on the left hand side, we have recommended some very specific metrics, but on the business side, there has been a little struggle with product managers and business on how to choose the right metric. And once I've chosen that right metric, how do I properly model it? Those who are from data background will quickly understand what we mean by modeling that metric properly. But those who are not may feel little confused at what does this phrase mean. But I think we should double click and spend more time
Yeah,
talking about metrics modeling. Yeah. And I'm
yeah,
noticing
absolutely.
today the background blur is ending up blurring my face also. So I don't know if I'm
And
merging.
if I go here, look at that. It feels like I have extra hairs on my head. So, so the algorithm is actually behaving a little wonky today. So
Yeah,
it's okay.
it's cool. This was a very good discussion, Sachin, where you brought up a scenario which really needs EEBO metrics, and in the next call, we should talk about how to model metrics properly, especially to help out the product and the business function.
Perfect. Thank you
See you
so
next
much.
time. Bye bye.
See you next time. Bye.